Hi there. My name's Chris Case. I've been a consultant at QMS now for 3 years. I specialize in the implementation and auditing of ISO standards covering 9, 14, 45, 27, and 50,001. If you do have any questions throughout today, feel free to ask them. You can go down and there's a question mark. There is a question feature where you can ask. They will be moderated. And then at the end, I'll go through all of the questions and hopefully tick off some of the answers for you. So, as you can see, today we're here for a webinar around how to conduct a management review. A management review is one of the key requirements of the ISO standard, and it is one of the areas that I see fails more than others. So I think it's probably a good thing to be going through. So let's do this. Right, so what we're going to go through today. We're going to talk about what a management review is. We're going to talk about its importance within the management system. Every standard has a management review, whether it is quality, environmental, health and safety, IT, energy, business continuity. There's lots. So everyone has a management review. We're gonna talk about how it plays a part within the management system, and ideally who needs to be present. It's not typically a one-man sort of task. I mean, it has to be in some cases. If you're an organization that only has one person, then maybe. But typically, we need to involve a few people. And then we'll go into how we're going to run a management review. I'm going to hopefully screen share some templates that will help. And then at the end, I'll go through any of your questions. If you bear with me 1 second. I've got two screens here, so I'm dragging information to and from. So if I'm looking away, I do apologize. Okie dokie. Right. So what, why, and who? So typically a management review is a structured once annually meeting that you would discuss a specific agenda, which we'll go into shortly. The minimum requirements of ISO is to carry out a management review at least once annually. And even though I just said it's a structured meeting, it doesn't necessarily have to be a single sit-down meeting once a year. You can cover off management review within other management meetings as long as the data can be collated and you have covered off all of the requirements of the management review within the standard. So if you decide that you want to carry out 3 meetings throughout the year, each meeting covering off a third of the management review, that would be perfectly fine, as long as at minimum throughout the year we can see the agenda is being carried out at least once. It is an essential part of your management system maintenance, and I'll go a little more into that a little bit later. I do like to reference across to internal audits because internal audits and management reviews work hand in hand with each other. You're looking at the same information, but there's slightly different processes between the internal audits and the management review, but there is a very good relationship between the two, so I will go in and reference them. It is a way of checking that your management system meets the needs of your organization and that you're still complying with it. Yes, it is. In reference to the internal audits of the management review, your internal audits, you're checking the inputs of your management system. You're checking your processes are okay and that it's been adhered to. When you're looking at a management review, you're checking the outputs of the management system. So you're looking at what trend data you've got. But we'll go into that a little bit more in a little bit. Okay. When it comes to a manager, it reviews and evaluates. So this is where I was talking just then about trend data. We're looking at the information that is being gathered throughout that 12-month period, and we're going to review and evaluate that data to see if we can see any trends, to see if we can see any risks, any objectives, any opportunities for improvement, because all of these standards are all been built on a plan, do, check, act methodology, which is based around continual improvement. So if you're not checking and evaluating what you're doing, then there's going to be no scope for improvement. It does check to fit whether it fits with your business. Once you start collating the data throughout the year, you can see the areas of your business that might need improvement, or if anything, that might not be required. There might be areas of the management system which you may be doing and you're finding aren't beneficial, such as if we were to take, I don't know, customer satisfaction, for example. Imagine you're sending out hundreds of customer satisfaction surveys a year, and then when you're sat down at the management review, you're going through and looking into your customer satisfaction. If you're finding that you're only getting 2 or 3 surveys sent back, then maybe that process doesn't fit your management system. It doesn't fit your organization's needs, and it's becoming much more of a task. So this is when you would kind of identify from that data that maybe we need to make some changes. Maybe it doesn't work as well as we want it to. And it provides a forum for consideration of data and enable evidence-based decision making. Pretty much everything that I've just discussed. It's all about looking at the data and making evidence-based decisions. And it opens up a forum for communication as well. So before the meeting, because the management review is typically a meeting where you're going to be looking at trend data and data over the last period. And the reason I say last period is you can carry out as many management reviews as you would like. When it comes to the frequency of a management review, all I say is do it based on risk. If you're finding out that you're doing a management review once annually and it's taking way too long and too much resource to be able to sit and minute a meeting, and that there's too many topics to discuss and there's too much information, then maybe you're not doing them as frequently as you should be. If you then say carry them out once every 6 months, maybe the data is then halved and it doesn't take as much resource and as much time. But on the other hand, do it more frequently. If you're finding out that the management review information within there is there isn't much to discuss, there isn't being much change from the last management review, then you can reduce the frequency as long as you are carrying it out at least once annually. It's important to take in all the resources you need into a management review, and that could be people, and that could be documents, data, and information. It's making sure that, one, you are taking in all the information you need, and two, that you've got an agenda to follow. There is a specific agenda which is documented within the international standard and which you would follow, and for anyone that is a QMS client, you will either have it written within your manual, or you would be able to generate a management review template in which then it will automatically generate the agenda for you to follow. And then, yeah, this is a list of the evidence that you would need to bring. So it's things like minutes from previous meetings, it's records, audits, customer satisfaction, non-conformances, objectives, targets. It's any change to any internal and external factors that have happened, so the context of the organization, any change to risk. It's anything that you feel is beneficial to sit down and discuss with top management, because this typically is a top management sort of task to carry out. Templates. So I've just spoken about templates within QMS Connect. One thing I'm just going to do now is I'm going to screen share with my other screen. We do have a management review template. We're happy to send this out should anyone require it. If you just request with the email that I'll put on the end, and we can send that out to you. But it is a management review template. It is for ISO 9001. So it is specific to that standard, but I will just, there we go. So hopefully now, I'm just going to turn and face this way. So hopefully now you can actually see a management review template. It should say QMS in the top corner. You can see that it's got all the document control at the top, but more importantly, it goes through what preparation you would need. And it also talks about what sort of materials to bring. And I think these are key things to have in your template document, because it might not be the same person every time carrying out a management review. And there may be new people, and it might be good to have that prompt on the top of the document to say, this is what we need to discuss. Obviously, there's going to be the objective of the meeting. And then underneath, we can see here, there's agenda IDs. So ID 1, ID 2, ID 3. And each one of these is a topic point that needs to be discussed. So we're looking into the status of actions from previous management reviews, Evaluation in trends and requirements relevant to interested parties. So it's reviewing your interested parties and their needs and expectations. Evaluate compliance with applicable legislation, regulations, and other requirements. So that could be relevant to risk. It could be relevant to your context, your organization, and your interested parties as well. And then down here, evaluation of trends. That's a duplicate. Evaluation of actions taken towards risk and opportunity. So obviously, as part of the standard, you've got to establish risk. So what we'll do is we'll discuss it here. Evaluation trends in changes to products, services, and processes. So any changes to your operations. We also got to look into management system objectives. So with objectives being a documented requirement, it is a requirement for you then to review them annually. And one of the main places to do that is within a management review. We've also got agreement of management system objectives and targets for the next period. So it's reviewing your objectives, setting new objectives for the next 12-month period based on the information that you have gathered for that management review. Review of changes of policies, so your quality policy, or if you've got further policies which you would feel would feed into your management system, now's the time to review them. So we're looking the effectiveness operation of this management system, so it's looking into how this management system is performing for you. Competence training, awareness, and knowledge management. Looking at your training requirements, whether you're doing your annual reviews, whether you're retaining information around annual training. Performance of external providers. I mean, typically this is something that you're going to be doing as part of your day-to-day, but it's looking into your relationship with suppliers and providers, and whether it's one, for example, one supplier has been late consistently throughout the year, which as an isolated incident isn't that big of a deal, but when they've done it 20 times this year, it's putting a significant cost on your operations. So that's the sort of thing. Conformity of products and services. Is there been any issues with any of your products or services that you've delivered? Customer satisfaction and complaints. Non-conformity and corrective actions. The results of internal and external audits. Opportunities for improvement, and then any other business. And we can see with each of these, we've gone and put an action ID, a priority, and who's responsible. The whole point of management reviews is to create that review of documentation and of information, but then out of that, have tasks in place in which you can create continual improvement going forward. And this is one of the reasons why I think it's very important to have all of the relevant team members in that meeting, because as you can see from the topic agendas on the screen now, it's quite important to have, your purchasing manager, or to have the person that's the team member that speaks to customers and who is in charge of business risk. In previous roles where I've been a quality manager, we've tried to drag in multiple team members so that they can bring in the relevant information which will be adequate for the management review. I also appreciate that there are some one-man bands out there, or some organizations that don't have the teams. This can be carried out by one person. You just need to take one hat off and another hat on for when you're reviewing this information. I'll go back to the slide. Hopefully the slide's back on the screen now. Fingers crossed. Right. So during the meeting, and it's the trend. It's assessing the trends of performance. I mean, I think I've spoken about this already, that we're looking at the trend data for the year. We're looking at how many non-conformances are being raised this year. We're looking at, is it always being from one customer? Is it always just after we invoice them? Is it one supplier always consistently late? Is there always being issues around an area of your production? Is it always related to one member of staff that has inadequate training? It's not about catching people out. That's not the purposes of these management systems. It's about identifying areas for improvement. And if it means that that member of staff is causing an error within your operations quite considerably, then it might be important to bring them in and review their training. Have they been adequately trained? Do they need to be shadowed? Just like with the non-conformances and the objectives and the targets, it's looking at what you've achieved or what data you've got in front of you and setting new objectives and targets going forward. which then obviously generates opportunities for improvement. And it's looking at assessment of resource, looking at whether a resource is in the right areas of the business. It's very, very important to keep minutes of these meetings. They are a documented requirement. So typically when I externally audit and I come and do an audit of your management system, I want to see that your management reviews are being carried out. I look at who's present in the management reviews because it's quite important to have, like I said, I have the relevant team members there, but it's also really good for leadership and commitment. If I can see, or I go into an audit and a quality manager says to me, I've been carrying out the management reviews, but my managing director hasn't been present and I don't have all of the information, I would say that that is not adequate leadership and commitment to a management system. And it's about, I always check who is present in the meetings. Based on the size of the organization. Having documented minutes of the meeting, because I can see then, I can look into the data and I can see whether you have reviewed the data, whether you have had looked at trend, whether you have a set of objectives or tasks or actions that need to be carried out, and kind of where you are with them. We're looking at this from a continual improvement perspective. For example, at the bottom there, it doesn't just have to be a sit down where you can just read documents. It's about getting the involvement, the communication in from everyone. So having Q&As and having people involved in the management system and maybe presenting different areas of the business is also a beneficial task. After the meeting, the whole purpose of it is continual improvement. So it might generate tasks to be carried out. You might see areas of the business that may improve, different processes and products that may need improvement or may be improved based on the information that you have. For any non-conformances, it might generate areas of corrective action and preventative actions are key. Typically, when it comes to non-conformances, we're looking into corrective, but preventative might need top-level involvement. It might need that discussion that, well, hang on, this has gone wrong 10 times this year. Well, actually, as a team, let's put the preventative action in place and let's stop it happening again going forward. It might be a good point to go through things like business continuity plans or project plans or disaster cover plans, if there are any in place. And it might mean that there may be a review of these, and it might mean that things may change within them. Or I would say if there's anything that's going to change, which is going to dictate or is going to influence decisions made across your organization, it's always quite important to communicate the management review minutes after the meeting to all interested parties that require it. It might mean a changes in objectives and policies, and you'll have a set of minutes. So I think we've gone through them already. And that is it as far as management reviews goes. Just to go on a little bit more about the relationship between internal audits and management review. Obviously, with internal audits and management review, the agendas and the topics are pretty much the same. And I appreciate there may be people within this lobby now, within this webinar, that are doing both. The importance is that internal audits look into the inputs. You're looking at your existing processes and you are looking at whether they are, one, adequate, and whether they are being adhered to. So you would look, for example, I know I've mentioned it before, non-conformances. If your non-conformance process states that you have a complaints log, I would go and check that you have a complaints log. I would check that complaints are being logged, and I would look at an example of a couple, that being an internal audit. A management review, I would be looking at how many complaints have we had in the last 12 months? Have they been around a specific part of the business? And is it always one person? And it's the difference between the inputs and the outputs. So even when you do sit down and you look at your audit plan and you look at your management review agenda minutes, yes, they do look the same, but you're looking at them from a slightly different perspective. So I think it may be time for questions. Just before I do, we've got a few links on the screen here. So there is an article at the top based around management review, which one of our great team members in marketing has written up for a little bit more information. Then we also have our website where you can go through and look at our certification process. And then right down at the bottom there, we have QMS Connect, which is our online management system to be able to assist with the management of ISO. So I think it's time for questions. Where's the question? There we go. Template. So it depends what system you have. If you have QMS Connect, you can go up into the top left corner. There's 3 dashes, which activates the drop-down menu on the left. You can go to the client template library, and within there, if you just search management review, it should bring up management reviews for all of the different standards that we have within Connect. If it isn't on Connect and you are on Launchpad, which is our older system, if you have your login for Launchpad, you can actually go in there and you can search through your documents there, and there will be one. If you have access to neither of them, feel free to, if you look in the chat, there is an email address for you to be able to email, and I'll be more than happy to send you over a copy of a management review agenda. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Yes, a copy of the webinar will be available. So in the next about 24 hours, you will receive a link saying thank you for attending the webinar. Within there will be the option to download the slides from today. And is that it? Is there any other questions around management review? Is there any questions based around specific standards? If you hold management review once a year, when do you recommend a year? Do you recommend when? I recommend doing them after your internal audits. I definitely recommend doing your internal audits first, because it is a requirement for you to review the results of your internal audit. So based on when your internal audit plan is entirely up to you. It's entirely up to you when you want to do them. I've seen companies that do them and organizations that do them at the end of the business year, whether it be the tax year or whether it be their financial year or whether it be the calendar year. That's fine. I've seen them doing the beginning of the year. I would say wait until a time within your business is a little bit quieter, and maybe try and do them then. But make sure at minimum you're doing them once every 12 months, because if you are not, it incurs a fail on your audit. I hope that answers your question. With regards to management review of policies, how and where can you get the latest up-to-date, both legal and currently sought by industry? So we're looking at legal policies. Our parent company, Citation, they assist with this sort of inquiry. They deal with legal requirements, they deal with health and safety, they deal with employment law. I would recommend maybe getting in contact with them. If you would like any more information for that, I'll drop my email down in the box shortly. I'm not qualified to give you legal advice on where you can and can't find legal advice. Google is a great tool. That's pretty much all I can say. But I will pop my email down there if you want to discuss that further with me, and we can chat about that. Does there have to be a review after the external audit as well? No, not necessarily. You can review your external audit within your next management review, because there might be topics and there may be non-conformances raised. If, for example, if I was to have an external audit carried out on me and I was to fail quite a lot, I'd probably have a management review not long after to go through the requirements of the standard and to be able to bring the relevant team members in to assist with what the non-conformances are. But it's entirely up to you. No, it's not a requirement. I would say do your internal audits first, then your management review. If you want to time it, I mean, typically what I would do personally, I would make sure my management review is carried out before my external audit, so that when the external auditor comes in, they can see evidence that I have carried it out within the last 12-month period. And then you can discuss the results of the external audit at the next management review. If the review is to be split into reviews, what is the best way of splitting it? Should we just 50% of the agenda minutes? It's entirely up to you. If you want to split it up and you don't want it to be a long task, like an hour, 2-hour meeting, which it can be in some cases, dependent on the size of the organization, it's entirely up to you where you want to do the split. I'll probably keep referencing this, but I'll go back to saying that it's all based on risk. If there's an area of your business that you feel is more prominent, for example, if I'm a buyer and seller or wholesaler, then my purchasing process and my suppliers will be quite important to me. So it might mean that I may need to review my supplier relationships and supplier performance probably more frequently. So I might do that in both of the meetings. It's entirely up to you. If you want to do a 50-50 split, by all means, that's fine. And you can pick and choose within the topic which you want to do. Like I said, as long as you're carrying out all of the meeting agenda, the agenda requirements of the meeting within the calendar year or the last 12 months from your external audit, then I would say that is fine. But it's entirely up to yourself. And I think that may be everyone. I'll put the survey back up on the screen if that's okay. So we're working on creating more content to help assist with the implementation and management of ISO. So I think we just got one more question. Oh yeah, we do have one more question. There we go. I apologize. Yes, so the difference between a minor and a major non-conformance really is what's in front of us here. So for example, if I was to come into your organization and carry out an external audit and find out you hadn't done any management reviews, that would go down as a major non-conformance. And with QMS, that is 60 days to rectify. And then you would have a rectification audit, which will be done remotely. If you have done a management review, but it's not quite followed the agenda requirements, or there is something that is missed, yes, it would go down as a minor non-conformance, and we would expect to see a rectification within the next 12 months. So it would mean that we would check that at your next annual audit. So it would go down as a past subject to rectification, the rectification being that you need to carry out a management review to the full agenda. Okay, I believe that is everything. So I'm just going to put a survey back up on the screen. So if you could answer this would be great. It gives us, the more feedback we get for these webinars, the better. It means that me and the team can work together about creating more helpful content for you guys. If there's anything below that you feel that would be beneficial to sit on one of these webinars, then we're more than happy to go ahead and do that. I will just respond to, I think it was Joe Jeffries. Okay, guys, so thank you very much for coming. It's been a pleasure. I hope you've benefited from today. If you do have any further questions, I've put my email down in the chat as well. We also have the marketing email, which has been popped down in the chat as well. If you do have any more questions, feel free to get in touch. I'm more than happy to help. And maybe see you all guys again on another webinar. But all the best. Good luck with your next management review, and I'll see you later. All right, bye-bye.